neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I always want to live in a house like yours, my friend. Maybe when there's nobody home, I'll break in. I married a woman who said she was rich, spent all her money, walked out on the bitch. Won't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
So there's a ton of movies out right now, and I haven't been able to see all of them, or at least not as many as I'd like to, and I only have a little bit of time, but I did see a lot of movies, and I really want to get this channel started up. I know I really haven't reviewed a lot in a while, but I really want to make this into more of a review channel, and I really want to get this started, but I also want to talk about politics, so if there's any political divisive topics you want me to talk about, let me know. But I also saw a lot of movies recently, and there are also a lot of other movies I want to see soon. So I guess I'll just talk about all the movies I saw recently. So the first film I saw was Knives Out. This is the newest film from director Rian Johnson. Now, I was not really looking forward to this one. For starters, I'm not really a fan of Rian Johnson as a director. I never really could get into Looper, and I, too, was not a fan of Star Wars The Last Jedi. And also, the movie did kind of look over-stylized, in my opinion, so that didn't help in my opinion either. But to my surprise, the film was a ton of fun. So what's the premise? Christopher Plummer is a wealthy author whose books have made millions. That is, until he is eventually found dead with a slit throat. It's ruled that he has committed suicide, but a world-famous detective, played by Daniel Craig, believes that Plummer was actually Jeffrey Epstein, and so he investigates every member of the family to determine who actually killed Plummer's character. From there, hijinks ensue. There are some funny little homages to other whodunits. There's a character whose name is Ransom. There's a nurse who has this fun little plot device where she can't lie without vomiting, except when the plot needs her to lie without vomiting, or when she's able to hold it. Yeah, kind of weird. And I guess there's also a ton of references to Agatha Christie. I don't know, because I don't read Agatha Christie. I guess the best way I can describe this is that it's similar to the first Pirates of the Caribbean or the first Iron Man. Nothing too intellectual, but it's just enough corny fun to keep you interested. What's also interesting is that Knives Out doesn't follow the traditional whodunit formula. I won't give anything away, but let's just say the cause of death for Plummer's character is revealed earlier on in the film than you'd expect. There's a bunch of fun twists, turns, and plot points. There's a ton of really great plot lines that the film goes down, and it's an overall entertaining experience. And although I was able to predict where the film was going at points, all I could think was, yeah, that's a pretty great place for the film to go. There are some aspects of the film that did kind of feel corny, but that can be forgiven since the film never really takes itself all that seriously to begin with. Most of the performances were great, and Daniel Craig was the standout. The performances I didn't really like didn't really matter since they weren't a big part of the film. There were some aspects that felt kind of dumb, some character choices that didn't really make a lot of sense, but it's still a pretty entertaining experience overall, and I'm giving Knives Out a 7 out of 10. The second film I saw was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This film is kind of a Mr. Rogers biopic. This film is actually more so based on this guy who was a writer for Esquire who had to do a section about Mr. Rogers in real life, and the movie mostly focuses on his life and his relationship with his father, with Mr. Rogers more so acting as a side character. Considering that most Hollywood biopics are the same, I suppose that's not really a bad thing, however. The film is pretty good. There's a lot of interesting themes explored in the film, such as responsibility and forgiveness and how we treat other people, and there are mostly some pretty solid performances. At the very least, I can't think of any performances that I thought were bad by any means. Tom Hanks never really looked like Mr. Rogers, but in my opinion that didn't really matter due to the fact that his impression was spot on. I guess most of my problems have to do with story and characters. There's a lot of really annoying characters that take up a lot of the film. There are also a lot of unnecessary plot points that I feel littered the picture. In terms of presentation, this film is okay. The cinematography is definitely decent, but it was nothing that really knocked it out of the ballpark, or even really impressed me for that matter. The film also has a lot of technical problems as well. Not to give anything away, but this film tries to recreate old episodes and interviews of Mr. Rogers, and in my opinion it doesn't do that very well, as a lot of these scenes feel very unconvincing, with Tom Hanks just plastered into them. There's specifically one scene which I won't give away, but all I'm going to say is that it was extremely embarrassing, like almost if it was out of a parody film. The green screen and VFX during this scene were just absolutely embarrassing and felt completely amateur. But in spite of that, I do recommend the film overall due to its solid performances and interesting themes that are explored throughout the picture. Overall, this is one of the better films you could be watching right now, and I'm giving A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood a 6 out of 10. Finally, the last film I saw was Jojo Rabbit, and it was This is the newest film from Taika Waititi, who previously directed such features like Hunt for the Wilder People, What We Do in the Shadows, and Thor Ragnarok. The premise of this one being about this kid named Jojo who grows up in Nazi Germany, being raised to respect the Nazis, and he becomes an instant Nazi fanatic, so much so that his imaginary friend is actually Adolf Hitler himself, this time played by director Taika Waititi. From the get-go, there are a lot of aspects to appreciate about the movie. I do appreciate them handling heavy subjects in a comedic, lighthearted way, although I must admit there were scenes where even I felt a little uncomfortable. There was nothing that really felt like it was in bad taste, but it's kind of the same reaction you get when you watch The Day the Clown Cried by Jerry Lewis. Most of the cinematography is pretty great, and I was impressed by a lot of the set pieces. Should also probably mention that this film's production value, especially for the low budget this film had, was also pretty impressive. I guess what's really holding this film back is the writing. Most of the jokes were pretty good. I did get a good laugh out of a lot of them, and there's not really any point where I felt, wow, that joke was really bad. Well, for the most part. The scenes with Rebel Wilson were absolutely infuriating, but outside of that, nothing really felt cringe-inducing. At the same time, while nothing really made me think, oh wow, that was bad, I can definitely think of moments when the film really wanted me to laugh and I didn't. Story is also largely unengaging. Now, there were never really that many points when I was bored or didn't want to know where the story was going, but at the same time, there were multiple aspects that made it very hard for me to care about the central plot of the movie. I guess my biggest problem are the way that some of these themes are communicated, specifically surrounding the main protagonist, Jojo. There's nothing really awful or horrendous about him, and to his credit, he is willing to listen to other people and change, which are strong qualities for a protagonist to have. At the same time, however, he does and says horrible things to people, and the movie still tries to portray it as, oh, well, he's just a kid, and he's not really that well educated, and he'll learn eventually. But at the same time, he never really faces that many consequences for his actions. Now, some people that have seen the film might argue that there is something spoilery that happens towards the end of the film that happens to one character that could technically count as something that is a consequence of Jojo's actions, but even then, it's not really a consequence of his actions, it's the consequence of the character that it happens to and what this character does. Now, I would be lying if I didn't say there were definitely aspects I appreciate to the film. There's a lot of more subtle humor, especially from this one character who's played by Sam Rockwell. Ultimately, however, this film just didn't have the impact on me that was intended, and I probably won't be revisiting it anytime soon, and because of that, I'm giving Jojo Rabbit a 5 out of 10. Definitely let me know what you guys thought of my reviews. Have you seen any of these movies? If so, what did you think? Also, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below, and make sure to hit that notification icon for more great videos.